Hey there, all my Rotation 411 astrology initiates. So I could have sworn that I saw Mercury was going to go retrograde on November 4th. And it's been feeling like Mercury retrograde to me already for sure. I just Googled it again. I should look on my own software. In Vogue Australia, it says that it turns retrograde on November 7th, which would be today. So I guess for Australians, possibly it already is retrograde. But it's saying in the Farmer's Almanac that it's November 25th. I don't know. For me, it definitely feels like Mercury retrograde, but I'm trying to get it done before the 25th with what I have to do. Like certain stuff has gone extremely smooth and other stuff's just very mixed up and odd. But we talked about that in our 2-part 1 video, and I will link, usually I link it. I think I did. I linked the playlist in the description below, and in the playback, we will have the link for the outer planets and their cycles series. If you haven't been following, catch up. All those videos are in that playlist for this book that we're doing a book study on. I'm going to sort of jump back into it today. I was supposed to get on yesterday. I don't know if any of you noticed that, and then I ended up changing it for today. I've been feeling a little lethargic and sluggish. I've just had a million things going on. But I'm trying to be consistent. You know, I'd gotten back on the birthday series, and it's like as soon as I really start to pour my energy into this channel, it's like everyone else in the universe is demanding of my energy. I'm going, is it Libra season? Because I have a Libra rising, and usually it happens then, and it didn't really this year. Like, I've never had a Scorpio season where people were just so talkative and so demanding and needy of me. Usually in Scorpio season, I feel like especially because I have a lot of water in my chart, that I'm able to sort of hide and sulk and reflect, and even get in sort of a mood. But it's almost like it's fast paced as Aries season. You know, Mars rules Scorpio too, and it's just been a lot. So, you know, the election is done. We kind of touched on that before, so we all know there. We're gonna hop back into these audience questions, and I did listen a little bit to the video from the other day, and it kind of sounded like I was underwater still. Like I always tell you guys, my Mercury's in Pisces, Uranus, so it's like, it sounds like I'm underwater sometimes. And I know I have a really fancy mic, and it's like, for that to work properly, I have to turn the volume up on the recordings. So I'm gonna have to get another that I met at the Psychic and Wellness Fair. Showed me like a little mic like this that is pretty affordable and looks good. So I'm probably gonna have to invest in one of those, but hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I had just been like too high on my collar the other day, but anyways, so that was at my Mercury retrograde announcement, and I was gonna pull up my tablet to show you guys on the Divine Timing Database app, which is on Android. Now, if you download the app, you want to log in the app, sort of in the side menu, to get to Matches Chat and everything. So if you are single and you're still looking for a partner, be sure to check out moonmatch.love and find the Divine Timing Database, and you can download the Android app or however you like to be matched with a really good astrological match for you, and potentially, you know, find a good life partner. So and right now, if you use my coupon code, it's Rotation 411, you get 10% off. And you can double up the coupon codes now. I think it changes every month. So if you use the November coupon code, which is Thanks 2024, and my coupon 411, you can get a really good count. Like if you just want to enter the database and see if you have any matches, I think normally it's $15. You can do it for $8 or something like that. Hi, Vicky. Okay, audience, so we're going to go back to this book. We're on lecture 2, and this is our part 2 video, continuing on with lecture 2. She's answering audience questions. Oh, thank you, my friend Ellie is best. Or is it Eli? Is it my friend Eli is best? Thank you for subscribing and joining, and for the feedback. All right, so audience, could you say outer planets bringing crisis? Do you mean by transit? Liz, yes, I mean when an outer planet makes a strong aspect by transit to something in the birth chart. The thing that is threatened and changed is described by the planet that is aspected. For example, if Uranus is transiting opposite your sun, you must look at your sense of individuality. The sun describes our basic view of ourselves. our feeling of being special, separate individuals. If Uranus hits this point, it's as though the planet is saying, quote, sorry, but this just won't do. Your view of reality is too limited. I'll just hammer you a little bit and make a few cracks in that solid wall, and then you'll discover that life is different than you imagined, and you're also different from what you imagined, end quote. Gotta take a breath, guys, sorry. Okay, of course, people react very differently to such an experience. Some people say, quote, good heavens, I've had a major revelation. Also, if you are like in Aries, Uranus rules Aquarius. So if you're like an Aries or an Aquarius, Uranus being opposite your sun, you might be a little more comfortable. So it might create even more of a stir up for you. Okay. All right. Others get terribly angry and blame everyone in sight for shaking their lives up. One sec, I'm going to clear my throat. Sorry, guys, I'm just getting over something still. It seems to be lingering on, but I think it's the weather. So anyways, okay. I've been taking my vitamin C, so. Some people welcome the possibility of change while others fight it and therefore bring the roof down on their heads because the planet has nowhere else to go except into events. I think this is a very difficult issue for many people to take. You can meet someone who has been plodding a long job for 20 years with same attitudes and the same rigidity. He's never allowed any new potentials to develop in his life because he's playing safe. Along comes an outer planet, and suddenly something happens. He unconsciously sets himself up to lose his job, or it's just fate that he loses it. Then he has to start thinking of what his life has really been about all these years. It's very hard and very painful. And if he fights, then things just go from bad to worse. Nowadays, we call it like a dark night of soul. Oh, hey, yes, Eli, my friend Eli is the best. Happy birthday. I'm not sure what your name is, but I'll definitely try to hop on and do the November 7th Scorpio birthday video for you today since you're in here with us. I kind of got behind again. Like, that was kind of my point is I was going, why am I so busy during Scorpio season? Actually, not as so much to do with Scorpio season or the season this time. Whenever I really start to pour all my time and energy into the channel, really making videos and being on here, then the whole everyone else in my life, every other occupation that I have is just like, we need you right now. And I'm like, well, I kind of want to be on YouTube with my astrology people. Hi, Pat God fan. So yeah, so I'll definitely November 7th, Scorpio happy birthday video from the birthday Secret Language Birthdays book. So check that out, okay? All right. So anyways, because that's for you. All right. It's my birthday. Let's see. Then he has to start thinking of very hard and painful. And if he fights against it, then things just go from bad to worse. But if he takes the situation as something needed, something which can help him grow and develop, then he's greeting the planet as a friend. And I think he gets the more creative edge of it. That's what I mean by crisis. Now I would like to go on to the aspects of the outer planets in individual charts. And if you were a chart read by me, you can go to rotation411.com, but I do recommend that it done by some trusted astrologist that you like in this lifetime. All right, that's the plug for that. So anyways, but it's a lot of fun. I learned a lot when I had an astrologist do it, and I was already an intuitive astrologist, but it really cracked the code on sort of the intellectual and scientific part of it for me. So anyways, I would first like to talk about what happens to the person who is tied intimately to the collective, and also about possible reasons why we have such great difficulty in accepting what the outer planets bring to us. Natal aspects between inner planets and outer ones, are almost impossible to be gracious about. They cause a lot of trouble. Like I have Sun trine Saturn in my birth chart, and that's supposed to be good, but I guess it's like makes you be a late bloomer as well. Leonardo DiCaprio has it too. And somewhere I read we actually feel like we're like ugly ducklings. So I don't know. But that was interesting because I'm like, like in a way, I guess, but it's like something I never thought of. They say we like blossom as we get older, if that makes sense. So I guess we don't we think of ourselves sort of, I don't know. And that's a trine. So it's interesting. And I see that in synastry as well with couples. Sometimes trines can create challenges just the same as squares, although they're a lucky energy. But anyways, now I'm going on a side tangent. So natal aspects between inner planets and outer ones are almost impossible to be gracious about. They cause an endless amount of trouble. For example, you can consider an opposition Venus and Pluto. That aspect has a very bad reputation in relationship matters. I would say especially Venus square Pluto. I like to give the oppositions a little bit of room because oppositions can be really harmonious. Let's say Venus opposite Moon. But when we're dealing with a malefic planet like Mars, Pluto, or Saturn, I have seen some oppositions slip through the cracks. I've seen really long-term married couples with oppositions, but I generally not so much in those long-term married couples. So I feel like something else is like overruling it. It could be when we're looking deeper into like the houses and the actual birth times. But I did have a client who actually worked with a lot. It was one of probably, how do I put it? Like, it was a client that had me on retainer, basically. So I worked with him extensively, more than most clients. And he had a Venus opposition with his wife. And most of the time, the oppositions are going to play out just like the square. Now, if you have Venus square Pluto with someone, it's almost as bad as having Venus square Saturn with them. Or not Venus. Venus square Saturn actually can be doable and can be sustained. But Venus or Pluto really can't, like Pluto square Saturn. It's Venus square opposition Pluto creates a lot of jealousy in a connection. And it's like, even if you're not a jealous person and you're the most secure person in the world and there are really no threats to the relationship, it can be like this underlying resentment that you're just like resentful of this person and you don't know why, or they're resentful towards you. So it's a real energy to work with in a relationship, but it creates like a love at first sight. I think in the love at first sight video, if you guys check that out, I think that's the one that I said can create love at first sight. It might be Sun trine and square Pluto though. Or I might have said Sun trine Pluto creates it, but it's not necessarily going to keep a couple together. Hi, I don't want to pronounce your name wrong. Daruva, hope I'm saying that right. Let me know. Okay, so for example, you can consider an opposition between Venus and Pluto. That aspect has a very bad reputation in relationship matters. And you guys can also, I've reading them, if you go to divinetimingdatabase.com/stars, or you can go there and just click compatibility report and put your birthdays in, you can quickly see if you have this with someone or anyone that you know. But I don't know if I've actually written in the description for Venus opposite Pluto yet, but I'm working on it. I want like the worst best in there so they pop out at you. Anyways, I go on that tangent a lot. So if you've been following along, I don't want to bore you. So if you watch the rest of the playlist, you'll hit it somewhere. It's okay. That aspect has a bad reputation. It's as though the person is a participant in a play where the director insists he play a part he doesn't personally like. Pluto, you are simply not allowed to live with others in a superficial way. You can meet someone when you're quite young and think they're really nice and lovely, and you both fall in love and want to get married and settle down. Then you buy a nice house in a nice suburb and have children and 2 cars, and theoretically you should both live happily ever after. If you see a signature like Venus-Pluto in your birth chart, there's no way that you're going to be able to get away with that. You are given a different fate. This is why sometimes it feels like, and I know I have this in my own way in my chart, that we have the same type of relationship over and over again with different people. And the law of attraction says it's because you keep telling that story. You know, it's like that friend that's like, they were having this problem with this person, then they left that, so now they're having the same problem. Now all of a sudden they're having the same problem with the new person. And then it's kind of, you start to think it's them and not the other people. But if it's in their birth chart, it might be that they're attracting energy to them and they have to cure it. A lot of times with my clients, we'll go through their exes and I'm like, man, you really love that, you know, a Mars square Pluto energy. You have it with your last 3 exes and it's not even generational happening. It's not like you're dating people born the same year. And it's just because they may need to work through that karmic energy and learn some lesson within themselves to sort of cure it. You know, that's a really cool thing about astrology too, is there are cures, and then they may never be astrology again. Or if they don't learn their astrology, it might happen organically, where one day they just light and go, oh, that's the bad quality that I keep getting attracted to. You know, it's like if somebody is really suffocating at first, I take that as security, you know, and then I regret that later. So just one day they go, you know, I need some laid back. And then they start to follow that energy and they never run into another Mars square Pluto again, you know. But anyways, but if you see a signature on your birth chart, okay, you are given a different fate. On a conscious level, you might want security, contentment, peace, and happiness. We all do, but those things will be shattered at some point so that you can get a glimpse of the enormously complex inner world as all that nice, collectively acceptable domesticity. In other words, relationships will force you to deepen and become aware of darker and more powerful currents in yourself and in your life, right? Because that's Pluto is those darker forces, but Venus is sort of trees in the comfort of life. Okay, Dorovo, you're telling me your birth chart here. You have Venus in the second. That's a good placement for money. Should be fairly easy for you to at least have your daily amount that you need. Saturn in the 8th is, you know, a lot of security probably through your family. Jupiter in the 11th, you're probably going to be into tech, or you're going to be very expansive in tech or some kind of networking. Sagittarius ascendant, you love adventures and you'd be pretty outgoing. Mars in the 6th, you're a hard worker. That's all I can fit. But if you want me to read into it more in depth, you can go to rotation411.com and order a birth chart reading. But let's get back to the book, okay? So one other quick thing I wanted to say about this is, I think my Venus is Pisces, my Pluto Scorpio. So mine's in a trine to some, I think it's at like 9 and 17 degrees. So it's like an 8-degree orb. So I'm not going to feel the sextile, but at least, you know, it's not a square, I guess. Anyways. Okay, Pluto is the inner world that you're getting a glimpse of. Venus is the luxuries and comforts of the world, like the American dream or wherever you live, you know, having the 2.5 kids in the house and all that. Let me just... Okay, so anyways, all relationships become a gateway to Pluto because Venus rules relationships, right? So every time you allow anyone close to you, and expose yourself to the experience of being changed and challenged and forced into your darker and less conscious emotional needs and drives. Another thing you might find too, if say you have Venus opposition Pluto in your birth chart, is you might find that you're working through this natal energy. Like I said, it could be a generational thing. Like for me, I have Venus square Uranus with everyone born in 1985, and that's only a couple years older than me. So I have a lot of friends and people I've dated with that. We were talking about that. So it took me a while to figure out why I couldn't stabilize anything with those people who actually seemed like a pretty good group. And Venus square Uranus can be great for friendship. You know, it can be an ex that you're friends with. It can be, you know, someone that you known forever that hits you up once in a while and it's like you never didn't speak, you know, but it's not necessarily good for a long-term stable relationship. So when you have something like Venus opposition Pluto in your birth chart, if it's not a generational thing like that, you might find that you have had 3, you know, significance where you had some Venus Pluto hard aspect, or you might find that you're drawn to Venusian or Pluto type of people, and that may or may not be comfortable for you, but this aspect in your natal chart is drawing you to it. Well, in Indian and like Vedic Indian astrology, right, is what you're saying here, Vedic or Vedic. I'm from the west coast of the United States, but in Vedic astrology or Indian astrology, they do consider the moon the most important. In Western, they consider the sun the most important. But I honestly agree. I think the moon is just as important as the sun, if not more in some ways when it comes to, you know, our home life especially. And then psychology, our mother is the moon, so that's important as well. But Pluto, you know, they say he's a planet, they say he's not a planet, and Indian astrology has been around for thousands and thousands of years, just like astrology, as though even though it evolves. So I just think the blueprint doesn't include Pluto because they didn't discover Pluto in the sky, anyone on the planet, until on Earth, until like, you guys don't quote me, it was I think 1944, but it was definitely in the 20th century. Yeah, so that's why Pluto's probably not in Indian astrology yet, but I'm sure there's definitely places that we could look for him, tie him into it. That's why I really love to sort of merge the two together. Like I Vedic stuff and I'm like, oh, that applies to Western astrology in this and this and this way. So you could learn Western astrology, you could learn about Pluto, and then go, one day it might click and you go, that kind of sounds like this in Vedic astrology, I mean? And so you might be able to sort of see where Pluto's playing a role there, even if it's not being attributed to Pluto, if that makes sense. Get a consultation with me on rotation411.com. And if you go to, I think it says, let me see, it's birth charts or natal charts readings. There should be a button on there. There's like a button for romance, and then you have a birth chart reading. That would be the one that you would want. Okay, and the way that I do those is a birth chart reading, you put in your information in the order in, and then I get back to you with a record, explain it to you like house by house, planet by planet, aspect by aspect for you. But also if you ever want to, like, you can Zoom with me, like we can do this where we're talking to each other, or we can do a phone call. You can set up and book a calendar appointment on there as well, kind of go back and forth with me. But if you put in the order for the birth chart, I can take some time with it, like a week, and just really take my time and record and do a long video format like this video, but just for you. You know what I mean? For the love, I appreciate it. Okay, so back to the book. And by the way, if you're just joining us, we're doing the outer planets and their cycles, and the playlist is in the description box below if you want to catch up with where we're at. We're on lecture 2, lectures in the book, and a couple other cool things that we're going to go over. Hi, Tutuoli. I think I'm saying that right. Tutuoli. All right. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Okay. Venus and Pluto. So every time, because Venus rules relationships, you allow anyone close to you, you invoke Pluto. If you have a hard Venus-Pluto aspect, and expose yourself to the experience of being changed and challenged and forced into your darker conscious emotional needs and drives, like your subconscious. There's no way that can, but if you think about it, we don't really know what's in our subconscious. So if you have this, the way you're going to kind of figure out or learn yourself better, like discover your subconscious wants and needs, is going to be through relationships. So see, once you know that, that's kind of powerful. You can kind of transmute it, where if you might have by default had this working against you, you go, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. Venus is relationships, Pluto is my dark subconscious. This is why I've been having these experiences. Now I know what to do with them. You know what I mean? Anyways. And see, so for people that have sort of like a trine sextile, that just might come a little more naturally to them. Anyways, and depending on what houses it's happening in too. Like for me, I have it in a sextile, like a wide sextile. Venus is in my house of work and Pluto is in my house of money. So I deal with relationships. A lot of the astrology that I do is synastry and relationship compatibility. That's Venus, relationships, in my 6th house of work. Trining Pluto in my 2nd house of money. I have to go through a lot of transformations, but it is harmonious, you know what I mean? All trining my midheaven in Cancer. Cancer is a very caring, nurturing, and you know, family-oriented sign. I don't know off the top of my head sort of what the rates are right now, so you have to check it out on there. There's different packages though, like I said. And even if you want mini reading, you could do like a tarot Q&A, and I can do like a 5-minute reading for you if you just have like a quick question that you want me to answer, like a private question or a tarot reading. Yeah, okay. I should have them add a coupon on there so that watching the channel you can get a discount on a reading. Okay. My vision isn't that great, so I'm trying to read Old Brazil. Olá, Brazil. Olá, Brazil. Thank you for joining us. ¿Cómo estás? Okay. Okay. There's no way that can be avoided if you have Venus-Pluto except to avoid intimate relationships, which is what many Venus-Pluto people tend to do. I think she's saying Venus opposite Pluto because it's Venus-Pluto, and that's what she started with. I don't think like someone with Venus sextile Pluto is going to avoid relationships. Maybe, because she is talking about, you know, Venus can be somewhat superficial as well. So, you have Venus is like superficial, dealing with like clothes, materials, food, the physical realm, right? And Pluto is like the subconscious, the unseen. So I guess kind of make that connotation here too. I don't feel that Venus Pluto is a bad aspect. I think she's saying Venus opposite Pluto. What seems to make it behave badly is it's like an abbreviation. What seems to behave badly is the refusal to allow this deeper level of experience into a relationship. I think it makes a difference if a person can accept this path as part of his life. Then he might have more chance to work with Pluto creatively instead of being the planet, kind of like the tangent. But he will certainly do that if you are very stubborn and pretend that everything can be solved by pleasant discussion or denial. Hi, thank you. I'm live with the people on here. So, yeah, talking to the world. Okay, reading them a book. Okay, let's see here. Let's see, where was I? Pluto doesn't have to destroy relations, but he will certainly do that if you're stubborn. Can be solved by pleasant discussion or denial. If you are determined to keep everything peaceful and calm and do everything you can to avoid tensions, either with your partner or yourself, then of course Pluto will turn destructive. Because instead of permitting the relationship to change you, you are then demanding that the relationship itself change. It usually does in a devastating way. There is a tendency when this happens to blame the partner, but if it's the partner who walks out, you can be pretty sure it's the Venus opposite Pluto who has architected it. So it's like your subconscious rules your breathing and your eyes blinking and everything that keeps you alive and clean and healthy. So you're being ruled by your subconscious all the time. So if you're not fit, there could be this sort of default trap that you keep falling into. So that's what she's saying by it could have architected it. You can't blame it on the other person or the relationship. You can kind of blame it on Venus opposition Pluto, but now that you're aware, Venus opposition or square Pluto in your birth chart, you probably need to kind of figure out, what are these patterns that are playing out with this? Thank you, Dhruva. Okay. Let's see what time. Well, yeah, we'll stay on for about another 20 minutes, you guys. I'm going to get on a little sooner, but okay. Sometimes the need to destroy is experienced inside oneself. So it could be sort of like self-sabotage, destructive habits that are the way that this is manifesting in your life as well. So it could either be the other person leaves because the tension built because the unawareness of this aspect, or it could be you behaving in a certain way as a result of this aspect and being unaware because it's your subconscious, right? And it makes you blink and it makes you, so it might be making you do certain things that you're not really self-aware of that are detrimental. Even though generally your subconscious is to keep you alive and look out for your best interest. Sorry, I'm getting a little distracted. Sometimes, like for survival mechanisms from 500 years ago, or not 500, like say caveman days, we have survival mechanisms, like our appendix, for example. So when I had my appendix out, the doctor's like, well, the good news is if you're ever like climbing in Africa or a mountain, you won't have to worry about needing your appendix out. So I'm like, so what is it for anyways? And someone asked me this the other day too, just in my life. They said, what is it for? We used to swallow rocks because we didn't really have good dental, we couldn't really have good dental until the last like 50 years. Like most people had a full set of dentures by the time they were 50, just only like 50 years ago or 40 years ago. So, so we swallowed rocks to help digest, and that's why we have our appendix, but we don't need it anymore. So we still have some survival mechanisms from our biological nature from thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years ago, but then we also have them just from like childhood. Something happened and somebody reacted in a certain way to us that wouldn't be a normal way, but when we're children, we're so impressionable that now we expect everyone to react that way. So we've built defense mechanisms. And so it's like if somebody says certain people or certain of us, right, might fly off the handle when somebody's just being polite to you, but maybe good morning when you were a kid went really bad one morning and you just think, oh, that's a threat, get away from me. I could see like Venus opposition Pluto being, sort of detrimental to you if you're not aware. subconscious triggers. One second, I'm going to clear my throat. And take a little sip. So, same difference, somos diferentes, same difference. That's funny. One of my friends mom speaks Spanish. She says, she asks you a question, like a pregunta. She goes, sí o sí. And I'm like, ha, that's funny. Like, say, yes or yes. Like, basically, you can't say no. So I love that. Somos diferentes, same difference. All right. Anyways, I love Spanish. I know a lot of muchas palabras, but I can't really speak like, well, in sentences. I don't. Yes, cool. All right. So let's see here. Let me just kind of start the last sentence. If everything can be solved by pleasant discussion, Pluto doesn't have to destroy. He will certainly do that if you are very stubborn and pretend that everything can be solved by pleasant discussion or denial. If you are determined to keep everything peaceful and calm and do everything you can to avoid confrontations, either with your partner or yourself, then of course Pluto will turn destructive. Because instead of permitting the relationship to change you, you are then demanding that relationship itself to change. And I wouldn't even say that a relationship should necessarily change you, but it should help you become more self-aware, learn how to adapt, become more because those are all the strengths of Pluto and Scorpio. They're very perceptive. You know, all water signs are very good at adapting. So unless you're learning to do that, you know, it's working against you. So you are then, okay. It usually does in a devastating. There's a tendency when this happens to blame the partner, but if it's the partner who walks, you can be pretty sure it's the Venus-Pluto who has architected it. Sometimes the need to destroy is experienced inside oneself. I think that's a progression upward from the other person, but it's much harder to recognize that you are trying to kill something you love. It makes no sense and goes against any rational reason or moral decency. Whether this leads in the end to staying or leaving isn't really the point. The point is to discover that emotions are often terribly ambivalent and that love is far more complicated than Bride magazine is prepared to admit. The capacity to betray is one of Pluto's faces, and to find that you yourself are capable of betraying is pretty difficult if you have any idealism in all in matters of love. I wouldn't really attribute Pluto to betrayal. Some of you might, Scorpio is one of the signs that is known for, and I'm not trying to stereotype you guys here, I'm trying to kind of flesh this out. I'm kind of defending you, known for being very retaliatory, they say, and they can hold grudge for a long time, but I don't think they're that retaliatory. I don't honestly think that Scorpios who are Pluto ruled go around like looking to retaliate at everyone. There might be a couple of them in every sign like that. I think it's more that if you burn a Scorpio, they're the last person that they will come for vengeance, and they'll be very good at the timing of it when you least expect it. And so it's not that they're going around like just retaliating and everything. They're much smarter than that, and they're good at conserving their energy. It's that if you burn one really bad, it's them and probably, I think it's Leo, are the two that, and Leo isn't very retaliatory either, but they're the two that, I think it's Leo that, can't remember, it's been a while. They're two though that like, you're going to feel the retaliation or the vengeance the most from them. Like it's going to be the hardest blow to you, and it's going to come from nowhere. Like it might have been 6 years ago, you forgot all about the person, but you burned really bad. If they're a Scorpio, it could be, yeah, they'll get you back eventually. Is all I'm saying. But I'm not saying that they're like vengeful and they carry that around with them with a chip on, which is kind of something that they will get attributed to sometimes, which I think is very unfair and not true. I think they're very strategic and logical, and they're not going to waste energy like that. But when it's like, they'll wait for the opportunity. They might not even watch or be concerned with you, but when that day presents itself and they see the button, they'll go do, and psh, everything will explode on you. So never burn a Scorpio. Like, you know, I honestly think Venus opposition Pluto is worse in synastry and relationships. Like I said in the beginning, I really don't recommend dating anyone, or especially marrying anyone you have Venus opposition or square Pluto with. That's just my recommendation. And also another thing about that, and I think it's in the Cafe Astrology definition is, that's the one where I also don't recommend, and I learned it from that, taking it, because I've seen it play out too. So it's like, if you have Venus opposition Pluto, it's an opposition. You may be able to start with this person. I don't really see it happen really ever. Usually I hear a different story when they're coming to me with it, but just know that I had to take a break. It's going to be really hard to get back together. Like, you guys might talk about it. You might spend some time together once in a while and reminisce, but it's probably not going to come back together. So don't wait around on that. If you're in that position, is what I would tell you if you're reading and you had it with someone. So you save you a couple bucks there. But also, if it's in a square, if you have Venus square Pluto with someone, I would recommend to get out if you can, especially if it hasn't been the smoothest road. I know it's easier said than done because it's a very strong attract, Venus and Pluto. But anyways, the capacity to betray is one of Pluto's faces. See, I don't totally agree with everything, but anyway. And to find, I was going to say, this is where I think Neptune is the more to watch out for betrayal with, because Neptune is very ambivalent and very elusive, and it's very easy to distort the truths of the matter from the reality. So I think you're more often going to be deceived by Neptune, even though with Neptune, unless it's Mars, aren't even then, don't really, I might have on divinetimingdatabase.com, I have Venus square, or no, Mars square Neptune as a deal breaker. I don't recommend it, but I do think I have seen it in long-term couples, like long-term couples. So there could be substance abuse issue there, but that would be one of the few Mars squares that can work long-term, is Mars square Neptune, and it doesn't usually work, but it can more often than others. So I kind of still got off here. So I would say, when you're, even with Mercury square Neptune works, you're more likely to be deceived by Neptune than you're going to be deceived by Pluto. Pluto, you're going to think that you got away with, or that Pluto's being passive, and it's going to bite you in the, behind later on. So that's Pluto. So if Pluto's going to sting you, you probably deserve it at some level. Maybe for not being self-aware enough. I don't know. Okay, to discover that love can die is also an awful face of Pluto, right? Because Pluto rules death and rebirth. That's interesting too. So something yesterday, it was like Phoenix rising from the ashes, and I think it had to do with, with the election, and I want to stay apolitical and everything, but I saw a title and I'm like, how fitting that I see Phoenix rising from the ashes during Scorpio season, which is sort of the theme, right? See, but that's the thing, is it's regeneration. So you lose a limb and have bad luck under Scorpio rulership of some sort, or transit, or Pluto, but then you have the power in Pluto to regrow that limb, is what, people don't realize. So Pluto is powerful. Anyways, because it rules regeneration. So it's going to, even though we don't regrow limbs, Pluto is going to be the first one to do that. A Scorpio is probably going to be the first one in the future to regrow when we hear about it, okay? Because in the law of attraction too, Esther Hicks says, the only reason we can't do that is because we don't think we can do it, and we've had the belief reiterated to us a million times. No, you can't regrow a limb. You can't regrow body parts. No, you have to have a prosthetic. Well, there's a lot of money in that for the medical industry. Okay, getting a prosthetic is, why would they want you to regrow limbs when they can? Just kidding. I'm sure it's not that profitable. I don't know, but anyways, or like the Neuralink thing, which I'm not even going to go into the politics on that. Like, that's kind of just insane in itself. But like being able to help people, on a further level than a prosthetic, like to maybe have like really very real artificial limb, probably is going to have a lot of Scorpios and maybe Virgos involved in the development of that as well. Okay, so let's see here. Let me get back to the book, because we're going to wrap it up here in a couple minutes. But to discover that love can die is also an awful face of Pluto, because we want to believe that if it's the real thing. Power, battles, and manipulation, and cruelty and sexual control are other Plutonian favorites. Okay, so there could be a little deception in that. Like, there could be a little bit of power struggles with Pluto. And, I saw yesterday, a meme that said, and I told one of my clients that if you're confused, you're being abused. So, that could be mental or emotional. And that happens so much these days. So in that way, maybe Pluto could be a little, because it's very smart and, could confuse you for its own gain, But anyways, because we want to believe that's permanent. Power battles and manipulation. Okay. Obviously, a person with Venus in Aquarius, Pluto in Leo, or Venus in Taurus in square to Pluto, I think she's saying, oh, okay, I don't know. I guess she's saying Pluto and Leo. So Venus in Taurus would be square to Pluto and Leo, is what she's saying. Is not going to be very happy about all this because the conscious values are so much at odds with Pluto's primordial nature. So she's saying Aquarius would be very idealistic, but I don't know. I feel like Aquarius can be quite realistic in a lot of ways, even though they live like beyond us, they're like, but in like a different way. I don't know that they're necessarily idealistic about love, but Venus is. So anyways, but Venus in Taurus could be pretty idealistic about love, or Venus in Pisces. So a square to Pluto, well, this doesn't really make sense. Okay. Oh, it'd be square to Pluto in Leo. Okay. Sorry. Just the way it's written is a little weird. Is not going to be very happy about all this because the conscious values are so much at odds. So she's basically saying if you have idealistic love placements in your birth chart and you have this square, it's probably going to shake your reality a lot. Not like your Uranus that comes in and shakes things up. It's just going to be like, you're going to be living your, cozy, luxurious and Taurus life. And that Pluto and Leo every once in a while is just kind of like come flashing in like the sun and blind you and go, whoa, okay, wake up. Like someone coming in and opening all the curtains, sleep, and super comfy. It would be my analogy of that. All right. If you, I'm like sitting here, licking my lips. Okay. It's very dry here. My energy is very low the past few days. I'm going to get through at least this question, but it's quite a long answer and I've been doing a lot of side notes. So I'm probably going to finish up this paragraph and then I'm going to out for the day. I'll try to get on for a little bit tomorrow, but we'll definitely pick back up Monday. If there's somehow I can pop on during the weekend, I will, but I usually don't have time during the weekends. And actually, tomorrow night and the next night, I'm helping my aunt out with work. And then Sunday, I'm working on another project for one of my other careers that I'm trying to get in. So I have a model for that. And we spent last Sunday all day doing it. So I don't know that I'll necessarily be able to get on tomorrow, but I will definitely be back solidly on Monday. Pretty much Thursday, I kind of have the whole day for this. But if you want to reach out to me or anything, again, rotation411.com. I highly recommend, if you're single, check out moonmatch.love. All the links are in the description below. But this paragraph. If you can somehow come to terms with throwing away your copy of magazine, then that's the beginning. I like that humor. Okay. The experiences of Pluto become part and parcel of one's love life if he aspects Venus. Probably the with under this aspect is the loneliness one feels in pursuing the strange underworld path. There aren't any collective guidelines, and the collective standards of one's world tend to be very intolerant of Pluto. Pluto is a loner, and it is an experience going down into the labyrinth to meet yourself. So it reminds me of Dark Night of the Soul. But that meeting offers depth and strength and a quality of love that is impossible to find in any other way. And I fate. Kind of like depth of self-love, I guess, then you can reconcile that love with the others, which is like Venus, Libra. The others is 7th house. So, okay, one more paragraph we'll do, but okay. This is what happens when an inner planet contacts an outer one. A strange fate intrudes into an apparently ordinary personal sphere of life, and the individual is pulled into experiences which he usually feels he didn't ask for and certainly doesn't like. There's something archaic and impersonal about the outer planets, and we find ourselves behaving in ways that don't feel our usual selves. This is why they can be very frightening. One gets a glimpse of something that has the power of a god, and collective consciousness can't. Its rules are quite ineffectual. This is part of the reason why outer planets are often painful and disagreeable. One must find completely different values and standards to deal with them, and that means separating from the comforting shelter of convention. These codes are as much inner as outer, and don't just mean rules about sexual behavior. Because Pluto rules sex, death, and taxes. So anyways, inner conventional codes tell us it's right or wrong to feel certain things or want certain. This is acted out or not. An aspect such as Sun conjunct Neptune not in itself a bad aspect any more than Venus opposite Pluto is bad, nor is it good. It's simply there. Charts don't moralize and say this is good or a bad quality to have. They make no statements of that kind. We tack our morals onto astrology, but the planets and signs make no comment. They merely suggest that this is your piece of cosmos for a lifetime, and you must make of it what you. That's what I'm sort of saying about once you're aware of it, you can transmute it or cure it, and then become the opposite side of the coin, right? The Sun conjuncting Neptune suggests that the issue of the individuality of becoming oneself gets bound for the mystical union and the dissolving of individual boundaries. I have Sun square Neptune to some degree, so I can relate. To put it in the form of truism, the person must lose himself in order to find himself. The conflict between the Sun and Neptune because they pull in different directions. But if they're in conjunction, then ultimately they are going to try to create an individual who is both himself and who can be, well, that's interesting. She says if they're in conjunction. I think she means because if they're in conjunction, then they're together and they're not in an opposition. But I think she's saying if the cohesion in an opposition. But if ultimately they're going to try to create an individual who's both himself and who can be open to the large whole of which he is a part of. Neptune rules Pisces, which is like the most collective, right? The collective unconscious. In the spiritual realm, it's all included in there. So in a sense, that person has an open door from the personal level down to the collective unconscious level. There we go. All right. A little preemptive there. All of the longings and yearnings and dreams and visions seep through into his own feeling life, and he's irresistibly attracted to those movements where those longings can find a place, like imagination and creativity and music and such, or spiritual. A person with Sun Neptune can't escape Sun opposite. She's saying opposition. Oh, she's saying conjunction. Okay. Because the thing about Sun conjunct Neptune, some astrologists say conjunctions can be almost as challenging as squares because it's like the energy is so strong. So the issue with Sun conjunct Neptune is you could have a little bit of a blind spot because, right, Neptune's elusive and it rules cinema and film, right? So you're almost like seeing this projection of yourself, your identity as a Sun. Neptune is in a hard aspect to that. It's almost like you can't see yourself clearly, right? Neptune can be foggy. It's like you're looking in a mirror, but it's foggy. Taking pictures. I touched on this before, like the curse of being human that's people, the story of Narcissus is the pond, right? Because the curse of being human is you can't see yourself. So it's like a muddy pond, a foggy mirror, and undeveloped film, right? When you have something going on with Sun and Neptune, it's hard to get a clear idea of yourself. At least on I don't want to say superficial level, but quality level. You might still have a lot of self-awareness in other ways. I'm just saying you're going to feel a little disoriented with Sun-Neptune aspects. Anyways, a person with Sun-Neptune can't escape this fate, although I think with this aspect will try to shut out Neptune. The longing for something ineffable and the state of the world's suffering are very real things for Neptunian people, and they can be felt as a terrible threat because they imply a disintegration of the personality. Neptune identifies with the figure of the victim and generally feels that the world is a pretty awful place. Can he please go home soon? One of the things which I think can plague Sun Neptune is the remembering of where one comes from. The place where there wasn't any conflict or suffering or struggle to be an individual alone in the world. I think what she's saying by where we come from is where we were born and where we're going after, because Neptune rules that side. Neptune rules Pisces, which is where the veil is between Pisces and Aries. death and life. Okay, so now I'm getting like really interested, so I guess we'll go on a little further. But these fantasies are not just personal ones, and it would be a mistake to reduce them to a longing for mother's womb, which would be sort of Freudian, right? They are a deep religious urge in the collective, which it also would be more moon, but Moon and Neptune get along very, very well. Anyways, and are a little more harmless. They are a deep religious urge in the collective to which the Sun-Neptune person is privy. So he must somehow combine his own talents and goals with these collective longings, because he is a mediator of them, the group. One sec. That light gets hot. Okay. I once did a chart for a woman with the Sun in the first house opposite Neptune in the seventh. She was a rather sad person because she felt unable to have anything in life she really wanted. Her father had been an alcoholic, and much of her childhood had been spent avoiding scenes in the household between parents. Her mother had been a very practical, managing woman who, of course, blamed father for everything. My client eventually married a nice, promising young man, but an ill fate seemed to dog her, because after a couple of years of marriage, the husband became alcoholic. The woman divorced this man and a few years later married again. The second husband again turned out to be an alcoholic. It finally began to dawn on her that something was at work in her life that was beyond her control. She was a lot like her mother in that she felt the way to get things one wants is to dominate in sight until they cough up the goods. She became very frightened when she saw this pattern at work. See, I would say more so, well, I didn't read for her, but I wouldn't put it, well, maybe she was a very dominating woman, but I would say more so that the first statement that she said about her was that her mother had been a very practical, managing woman. So I feel like she probably was very practical and managing as well. And then dealing with all these and distractions and kind of, as I can relate with Sun square Neptune, like ridiculous. I'm always like, the world has enough problems, let's not create our own. She probably was very just practical, but dealing with the obstacle of Neptune, she probably had to become more dominating, right? To try to compensate for it. Because being just easy and going with the flow and being practical and managing, I guess in my case with Sun square Neptune, it doesn't always work, right? So anyways, became very frightened when she saw this pattern at work. As Ian Fleming once wrote, quote, once chance, twice is coincidence, and 3 times is enemy action, end quote. The opposition of the Sun and Neptune certainly placed a fate on this woman, but I don't think it was that she was doomed to spend her life with alcoholic men. Somehow she managed to throw off the inner responsibility which Sun-Neptune required of her. Admittedly, it isn't an easy aspect to try to live, not least because social standards run against all the things Neptune represents. But my client was too frightened of the dissolution and entry into the magical world that I think Neptune requires, so she projected her Neptune partners. This is to be expected when it is in the 7th house, right? Because if her Neptune's in her 7th house, the place that her Sun opposition Neptune is going to be interfering with is going to be her 7th house. For me, my Neptune is on my IC in my home, but my Sun is in my 7th house. So I definitely can relate a lot to this theme that this woman had with Sun square Neptune. So I'm like, okay, that's why I'm keeping going here. It's interesting because one of my friends the other day, she's a Leo, late July Leo. I'm like, oh, I thought you were August Leo. No wonder, because I love late July Leos. She's July 27th. One of my best clients is July 28th. It's because my Mars is sextile all them. But anyways, she was saying to me, we were talking, I don't want to, she might end up watching the channel someday, but we were talking about people we know personally that we both knew. We didn't know them at the same time, but we both knew them that have passed. And she was talking about, how she feels like one of them's watching over her baby and her baby's interacting. And she's talking about seeing spirits. I have a few friends like that. They're like mediums that see spirits. And I told her, honestly, I think the reason I don't see them, missions, like I see them in dreams, and I know when it's like a dream versus I really think that they're visiting me or saying hello. And so this is the conversation we were having. But I just think from a very young age, I made it very clear to them because I was kind of afraid. Like I felt very strong fear if I felt a presence around me. So I made it very clear to them that, do not show yourselves to me. Like I will ring the alarm. So, but I do feel like I get signs, symbols, other little messages from definitely that are very clear. I can definitely channel, but I don't channel through different tools and means and methods, but I do not see spirits. Like I don't hear them really. So a client had got mad at me. I think I mentioned this because I didn't do a clairaudient reading. I'm like, well, I have clairaudience, but it's my own intuition going, turn right instead of left. It's not like I just like, okay, give me a clairaudient reading, let me listen. Maybe I'm cynical, I don't know. In a way, I don't want to be that connected because it's already very overwhelming to me in my energy. So it made me contemplate this conversation we were having, like maybe it's so overwhelming to me in my energy because I'm shutting it out so strong. I don't know. But she was saying to me, it was very interesting insight. She said, it was kind of going back to this, like, this woman integrating her Neptune, which has a lot to do with this, what I'm talking, spiritual realm and seeing and having any interaction with it in your conscious. So she was saying to me basically, and it'll come back to me in a minute, that possibly I could strengthen something, which is an area I guess I have a weakness in, but not something that I was worried about necessarily. It's like the lack of it. She goes, do you think that this could be the case because you shut that out? So basically, because I told the spirits, do not show yourselves to me, it created another sort of deficit where if I opened up to it and said, okay, if you're around, show yourself to me, don't yet. Strengthened in these certain ways or be able to overcome these certain like Neptunian type obstacles. I don't know if that was the subject matter though. Gosh, now I kind of like want to go back through our text because we were texting it. It was very insightful, and I told her maybe I can search very insightful to see what she was talking about real quick, because it was kind of like this Neptunian vibe with here's very insightful. Okay, maybe it was right here. Okay, she says, I'm just going to sort of read this off the cuff. She says, but like, do you feel... Oh, she's talking about, okay, I remember now. This is what it is. She was talking about past lives, that she feels very to past lives. And I said, I just don't feel it. Like, I just don't read for it. I know the indications of it. I just don't know that I believe it. And she was saying that maybe if I didn't block off like seeing energies like I do, that the barrier wouldn't be there for me past lives, which was very interesting to me. And even if it's not about past lives, I thought, well, maybe it did create other barriers, like working through Neptunian issues or something. So I don't know. I'm still not quite ready to do it yet. I don't want to play with it. I feel like it already is very like much present in my life and very beneficial. So I don't, it's almost like I'd feel greedy if I tried to tap into the spiritual well more, and energies that you don't want to play with. So I don't know. But anyways, it was definitely in my mind in a new way. So let me know if you guys kind of know what I mean there, have any thoughts on it in the playback. But let's see. This is to be expected when it is in the 7th house. The alcoholic father described by Sun Neptune is not just an alcoholic. He is a distorted symbol of someone thirsting for the spirit. And I say that a lot too. And it's crazy. So shame here, Liz. They call alcohol spirits. That has a lot with Neptune right there. Like, you want to sum up Neptune, spirits. That's what Neptune is. Pisces, spirits. Okay. He is a distorted symbol of someone thirsting for the spirit. Are you guys like, can't hear because some of you guys are popping in and out. Let's see, sometimes that microphone goes off. And I did mean that as a, but there is a close, she means it as a pun. I think it's quite literal, but there is a close connection between the kind of alcoholic who drinks to find some magical or transcendent reality, and the mystic who is also looking for the same experience of losing himself in. My client's son Neptune describes an inheritance from the father, which is a deep spiritual thirst. She couldn't accommodate this with her conscious personality, which was very practical. It's kind of like having a Capricorn Neptune square sun. So she rejected the father and found husbands who acted the same Neptunian tendencies in the same negative way. Now I'm curious to hear the rest of this woman's story. Okay, what this woman did is this is kind of what I was talking about the other day too with that stupid tarot movie they made, is maybe it's that, you know, the universe is so interconnected. We're all unique. I really believe that we all have a different birth chart. I truly believe that, like a thumbprint, but we're all so much the same too. So much repetition of the same. What this woman did is what most of us habitually do with outer planet aspects. We tend to project them into rather distant Neptune, well, especially because it's so malleable, right? Neptune, where's Braden now? He loves Neptune. Okay. Neptune materializes as the alcoholic or the deceitful partner. See, that's what I was talking about earlier, where I more to Neptune, deceit. And Uranus dresses as the partner who leaves you, up and comes and goes. And Pluto disguises himself as the partner who has power over you or has some pretty complicated sexual and emotional patterns. But I think it's possible to at least try to live these things in one's own life. That can be exhilarating and creative. If we can come to terms with the fear, the child with strong outer planet aspects tends to be singled out when he's young. He's usually the one the other children think is a little weird. He may suffer from a lot of collective pressure in the form of conventional expectations, especially, this sounds like sad what she's talking about here, especially if the outer planet is in a prominent place like the ascendant or the midheaven. Because this child answers to a different drumbeat. He is often avoided by his soberer fellows who have aspects like Sun, Saturn, and Sun opposition Jupiter, and Sun opposition Mars, and are better adapted to the social order. All right, it's weird. I don't know if she's doing the dash Sun, Saturn, Sun, Jupiter, and Sun. See, I'm getting sleepy. I might be confusing you guys here. So I think I'll just finish this one paragraph and we'll pick up at the beginning of this tomorrow. So, because it's getting a little, I'm confusing myself now. And I've been on here. I was only on for like 30 minutes because, anyway. A person's strong outer planet contacts may have a disruptive effect in the group because the outer planets tend to feel threatening to more Saturnian values. See, an outer planet, that's why I'm getting very confused here. Sometimes you can see the opposite extreme to the woman I just described. The person may get so used to having strangeness projected onto him that he begins to identify wholly with the outer planet. Then he becomes the anarchist or the renegade against the social order. In pursuing this path to the extreme, he loses his sun, which means he no longer has a sense of his own individual values. Especially Sun in the 7th house can do that. Or Sun in Libra. Because the Sun's in Libra, so Sun in the 7th house or Sun in Libra, you can become quite a rebel and lose your identity. Or form it. But anyways, that's like a really great placement for artists, but which he has no longer a sense of his own individual values. He is nothing but a mouthpiece for the collective unconscious, and he can be very destructive, not only to others, but also to himself. Yeah, we're going to reread. It's kind of finishing up the story here tomorrow because my check out on me. Like I said, it's been a long week, like a million things going on. And I told you guys, the more I pour myself into the channel, the more the world wants to pull me away. So anyways, it doesn't matter. I'll keep coming back no matter how long it takes me. So anyways, this is part 2 of lecture 2. If you want to see the beginning, we did 4 parts for lecture 1 and we did an intro that's in the description below, and then I will put it in the comments in the playback if you're watching this after we went live. Thank you all for joining me from I think, are you in India? Are you in India, Dhruva? From India and from Brazil and all over the world. That's why I got interrupted there briefly. I was like, I'm talking to the whole world right now. So anyways, all right, I'm saying lots of love and light. Don't forget to check out moonmatch.love if you haven't yet. I know there's a woman in there in India that's looking for someone. So definitely check that out if you're, anyways, all right, love and light.